Welcome, Greek U Nation. It's episode number 571 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous: Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I met my wife in a training session in Dallas, Texas. This was my first job right after college. I was representing the New York City branch. She was representing the Philadelphia branch, and we met in Dallas. Totally, completely unplanned, but you just never know when the love of your life is going to come walking into your life. So just pay attention and just let life happen. It's going to happen on its own. Now, that story certainly has been a wonderful one. There's no question about it. We've been married now for well over 20 years, which is wild, and have two children. And so all of that is great, but not every relationship goes exactly as planned. We are going to talk a little bit more today about sexual assault, specifically on college campuses, and how we can work together as a community to make these college campuses safer. I'm going to introduce our next guest. Over 7 years of Meg's life was like being in a prison day after day. Little was in her control. In the beginning, she thought it'll pass, that life will get better. But year after year, the punishment just got added to earlier means of torture. The physical abuse was scary, and many times she didn't think that she would survive. But the mental controlling games destroyed her from the inside out. She couldn't escape her mind. If there was a moment of peace, it was quickly replaced with some form of his evil game that never let her forget that this wasn't a nightmare. It was her life. She would torture herself on especially hard days by playing the if only I had or I wish I would have game. Meg Grett-Pratt is a survivor of abuse. She experienced emotional, financial, sexual, physical, and stalking abuse. Meg studies digital forensics and is an advocate for victims of domestic and sexual assaults. She also volunteers for the victim crisis hotlines. Her goal is to help prevent and put an end to abuse and violence in relationships. Welcome to the show, Meg. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, what you talk about is extremely important on college campuses. I think we need to talk about it more often. So I appreciate you being on the show and just sharing all this great information with us today. And I always like to start with college. I think it's a very formative time in our lives. You decided on Colorado Mesa University. I'm wondering, why did you decide that Colorado Mesa was the right choice for you?
Well, at that time in my life, my junior year of high school, I actually became a teenage mom, and Colorado Mesa University is about an hour away from my hometown. I had applied for a scholarship, I'm an ambassador for the college, where you're kind of doing the leadership role, introducing people to the campus, giving them tours, just being a buddy when they came onto campus. And I was awarded that scholarship, which was a full ride to the college. And so it wasn't a hard choice to make. And I could come home on the weekends, and well, some weekends. And great university. When it started, it was only a 4-year college. Now it's a university. So it's keeps growing, keeps getting better, and it's definitely a good thing for locals that you can be sort of close to your home, but you're getting this college experience there because they have so many things to offer.
Close to
Yeah.
home and free. That is the right formula. That is
Yes.
good. I don't blame you at all. It obviously has worked out really well for you, so that's good. Can you take us back to the very beginning of your story? I'm wondering, what were some of those early warning signs or feelings that you now recognize as red flags in that particular relationship?
Yeah, there's so hindsight 2020, you see this whole different person in a whole different relationship than when you were, kind of going through it. Probably the numbers 1 and 2 would be jealousy and isolation. Two things that happened very quickly and at first felt flattering. Someone wanting to spend all the time with you, really jealous of any other person having your time, but quickly became within months just totally isolated from all my family and friends, not being able to go anywhere without kind of having a tag along or someone, questioning everything I did, as far as even down to the waiters in the restaurants. Are you looking at that person? Do you know that person? Are you like that person? It was to the extreme where I should have known better. You know, I should have the fear that I had in my stomach about some of the other things he did was yelling a lot. He was also my boss at the time. So the getting that it made me nauseous just how you respond to other people. But for some reason I decided to still go out with him. And I wish I would have stopped when I saw it, right away. It makes me uncomfortable a lot of what he does day to day.
Yeah. That feeling, that internal feeling, I think that, that you had, I think that's important to pay attention to. I think all of those things are telling us one way or the other, this is either the right place for me or it's the wrong place. But listening and taking action is obviously another story. And many students today that are listening now, perhaps they believe that abuse only looks like physical violence. Can you help to show us and help understand the more subtle forms of abuse, whether it be emotional or digital or financial, that some college students might overlook?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say out there to help people, you don't have to have a bruise to be in an abusive relationship. The black guys aren't that most common kind of relationship because the emotional abuse, the digital abuse, the financial, all those things can be done. And if you're behaving, kind of doing what that person wants you to do, they don't ever have to resort to physical violence. They've got you in the first couple things. I say the emotional abuse, manipulating, using your emotions against you, threats, uh, calling people names, just kind of that gaslighting thing, making you believe you're a little bit crazy, putting you in bad situations. The digital abuse, needing to know where you're at all times.
Mm,
Using your phone against you, even to the fact like someone asking, it's very common. Hey, let me see your phone so I can see who you're talking to. These are not things that are okay. The person you're with should make you feel good about yourself. If you're walking on eggshells, wondering when the next explosion is going to come up, even the yelling, it's just anything that makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be physical to be abused. If it's making you, I had a really hard time with my stomach. Went to the hospital numerous times thinking something's wrong with me because my stomach is in so much pain. And that was my instincts or my gut, trusting your gut. I'll tell people all the time, my red flags may not be the same as your red flags. There are definitely ones like physical abuse and manipulation that you don't want to pass by, but some may be more subtle. And if you're not okay with it, then it's just not an okay relationship for you.
mhm.
Um, yeah,
That's really
financial
helpful.
abuse. Yeah, it was in that relationship. It just happened to be that he was also my boss,
Mm,
and so needing to know that if he didn't pay me, I couldn't move on, or he thought I wouldn't be able to move on because I'd be trapped by the money situation. A lot of teenagers they'll have that person's paycheck very young, or tell them they have to spend all their money first, kind of to keep them broken up. They make you feel like this is how it has to go. And a lot of relationships in the beginning, especially in college, if you're the first time you started dating, a lot of people will go along thinking this is normal. If they have a friend that's even sort of experienced the same thing, oh, this must be okay. If someone tells me how to dress, how to act, when to smile, this must be okay. And just getting them to know that this is not okay. Someone should make you feel good about yourself, not, worried all the time.
mhm. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really important for our listeners to hear. And I don't only want to focus on the bad things too. I think, you've also seen healthy relationships. So what are some common green flags or signs of healthy relationships that students should also be looking for?
I think, in the beginning, if you can have good communication, if something bothers you and you're able to talk with someone, it doesn't make you feel like, oh, they're going to get angry or they don't value my opinion. So having equality in the relationship. And trust is a big one. And someone it's okay if you go with your friends. And there's not a permission thing. It's more like, hey, you should still hang out with your friends. You should still go to your, volleyball or whatever you're interested in prior to that relationship. Those are green flags. Having trust, participating in things, having good communication, being able to have someone to respect things that make you uncomfortable. If you say something makes you uncomfortable, you're able to communicate it. I would say that's number one. If you don't have communication, that relationship shouldn't go on. But anything that comes up, if you're able to communicate and someone respects what you've said and makes an effort to honor that for you, and so you're comfortable, and they make it known that it matters to them how you feel. So I think those are the top four that I would say. If you have those going on, you probably have a really good relationship, and you can make anything kind of work. Minus some really bad things, but otherwise, those are kind of the core things that you need to have in a relationship in order to make it work and feel good about it.
Yeah. Communication and trust, I think, are really, really critical. As somebody who has been in a relationship for 23 years, I will tell you that it's all about communication and trust. You got to have those two pieces. That's the foundation. And if you're building on a shaky foundation where there's no communication or not good communication or no trust, then it's just really, really hard for this thing to work long term. So I agree with you there. Those are a couple of really good green flags, I think, when that is in place. How can a college student safely set and enforce boundaries in a relationship, especially when sometimes there's all this pressure to keep the peace and make it seem like everything is going well?
Yeah, I think it's important to realize, even before relationships start, when I talk to people who are having a hard time with relationships, say, what are your deal breakers? What are things that you're not going to want to have in the relationship? It can be down to, I don't want someone who, smokes. I don't, that's not something that's acceptable to me. But letting someone know, hey, there's a couple of things that aren't cool to me when they come up, being able to address those right away, saying, and it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation because people assume, oh, it's not going to go well because I'm telling them what to do. You're not telling them what to do. You're telling them how you feel about something. And when we go about it that way, I think that it's a much easier conversation. You say, I feel this when this happens. And then just being able to say, if this continues or this something like that would go on and on, I just won't be comfortable, continue the relationship. So there's some sort of, if this happens, this would happen. I think that gives people a warning sign. And people who continually violate your boundaries, so you set something and they almost purposely and no give no effort to respecting that, you kind of want to walk away because they're respecting the little things in your life or things that you bring up to them. They're most likely going to go over the boundaries that are big to you. Things that make you really uncomfortable. And so I say it has to be a bad conversation, and always, if you want to bring it up and kind of talk about a few things because you've experienced something in a prior relationship, you could also make it easier by saying, what are some boundaries you have? What are things that you make you uncomfortable, or what are things that make you even feel good? Uh, and as simple as saying, I'm not really cool with that. It's not okay with me if this is happening. It doesn't have to be, you can't do this, you can't do that. I think if when you use the you sentences, it makes it a little bit harder and people get up on the defensive. So just kind of saying how you feel about things and letting people know, and you can piece it out or you can address things as they come about. It depends on you. You can be able to read the relationship and how that person is going to respond.
Yeah. I think that conversation is super important, especially in new relationships where you're just meeting the person. I think just putting everything on the table and just saying, hey, like this is what I'm looking for in the relationship. And then asking the other person, what are you looking for in the relationship? And then just listening. Like, don't say a
Oh yeah,
word. Just listen to what this person has to say. And then you can figure out if this is a match or not, because maybe we're looking for different things. And that's
oh definitely.
okay. But I think you have to have that conversation and that's where I think things break down. I think that's where we're not talking to each other about what we want in this relationship. And early on, I think that sets the stage for that trust that we talked about before in a long-term relationship. So all this is really, really good. Now, all of our listeners, many of them are in fraternities and sororities, so they are around their peers often. They live with them, they see them in the house, they see their daily behaviors, etc. And sometimes you might suspect that a fraternity brother or a sorority sister, maybe they are in an abusive or a controlling relationship, but you don't know how to help them without pushing this person away. So,
Right.
what is your advice when you're in that situation?
I think if you can, if you depending on how close you are to the person, I mean, they're your sister, so you're looking out for them. Maybe you're concerned, making voicing that, hey, it feels like you're distant. You may have because little things that happen, being distant, pulling away from activities they used to enjoy. You know, maybe you can see that they're depressed or look like they're sad. Being able to say, hey, I've noticed this. If you can notice something in particular and just say, how does that make you feel? Or do you need someone to talk to? Um, Lots of easy things to say that don't put people on the defensive or make them feel like they have to expose a lot of things. You say, I'm here for you, and then really following through with that. If you don't have to be an expert to be a good friend. Again, it's just listening, believing that person so they don't feel like sometimes people will say, well, why are you with that person? Or when are you going to leave that person? And it kind of makes the person feel like you're accusing them, and they'll put someone, making them more isolated than they already are in that relationship. So really listening, being there for the person, and then look out for some resources. And if you feel like, oh, I can't handle this anymore, or this is beyond my, being just a good friend, there's tons of resources out there that will listen, give you additional resources, make it easier for you. But knowing that you're not alone, even the person who's being a friend, you're not alone in this world, that there are people who want to help and can really help someone that's dealing with an abusive relationship.
That's great advice. You don't have to be an expert to be a good friend. I mean, that's
Right.
really what it's all about. It's just being a good friend and being there for somebody else. So that's really, really helpful. Now, you were in this relationship that was abusive and you were getting these gut feelings that something wasn't right. And yet you continued on in the relationship, right? So imagine that there's somebody listening to you today that is in a similar situation where they feel trapped, or maybe they are unsure if they're really experiencing abuse in the relationship right now. What do you want to tell them right now?
I want to say that it happens more often than you know. And so you're not alone in this. Don't, you didn't cause this. It's not your fault. So take care of yourself. Reach out for help. Get have an ally out there in the world, because when you isolate yourself and don't let somebody in, you're alone, and that person gets more power over you. Abuse is about power and control. So they like that isolation to make you feel like there's no one going to talk to you, no one will believe you. People will believe you because most likely, one in three women will experience it. And most of it happens before age 25. It's a very common thing. So even when I speak, people say and come up to me afterwards, oh, that happened to me. That happened to me. And I sometimes even think it's more than one in three because it's so common. And so knowing that maybe if you share it with someone, you might be helping someone else as well. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. And if it just doesn't feel right, if you're questioning if it's even a little, maybe abuse, it's probably something that's saying it's not okay. That's enough. You don't have to have the black eye. You don't have to have the broken arm to have an abusive relationship. Basically, if it doesn't feel right to you, it's okay to end the relationship. And it's take care of yourself is number one. So
Yeah, thanks for
yeah.
sharing that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, a sexual assault, it's not about the sex, it's about power and control over somebody else. That's why, like in your situation, it was a boss. Sometimes it can be a teacher or a coach. It could be somebody in your life, many times it is, that has some kind of power and control over you. And they're using that in order to keep you in that situation.
Right.
So all of this, I think, is really, really helpful. And also, what's interesting about you is you study digital forensics. So I'm wondering, how has technology changed the way that abuse shows up in these college relationships?
It makes it easier for someone to manipulate you, basically. Technology, it's a good thing, but some criminals, abusers, they figure out, how they use it to their benefit. And that's the unfortunate part, is that your phone is great for your family and friends, and having your location on so you can have fun and meet somebody up there, in a new place. But the reverse side is that people can track you where you go every day, see your calendars, listen to your conversations or text messages. And so this is just the opposite side of the helpful part of it. And it can really isolate a person, because if someone's messing with your social profiles, your emails, seeing things before you've told them, knowing things that they shouldn't know, it can make you feel, it's really gets a scary feeling. And people think that if stalking is not physical, then it must not be scary. And I would argue that it's almost more scary because we rely on our technology so much. And then when you can't use it, or you can't feel safe using it, it's just a really bad feeling. And you're scared about what else do they know, or you can never kind of escape the person between locations and people checking in on their social media, those kind of things. It just makes it easier for the perpetrator,
Yeah.
to do it.
You're so right. I mean, it's like a double-sided coin, right? On one hand, it's great when we take an Uber and somebody can track where we are, a friend, on Uber to make sure that I actually made it home after going out. But on the other side, on the flip side, if I'm in an abusive relationship and now they're tracking my every step all day long, then that's problematic, right? Um,
Definitely.
so yeah, so I can see that it goes both ways. A lot of your content as we go onto the website, it really does talk about turning pain into purpose. So what did
Mhm.
your healing journey look like, and what tools helped you the most?
Well, it took a long time. I mean, when it was happening, I did a lot of counseling, trying to figure out how to feel better, how to gain trust again. Because when you have PTSD and anxiety, depression all mixed together, you just keep going down, down, down. So the relief came when I thought that he was just not existing anymore. And so I was able to feel safe again, being around people who loved me and supported me, and then implementing some of those things I learned, about trust yourself. It's not your fault. I think that's the few things that, and that, that make you stop blaming yourself. I think that a lot of victims do that. And it's hard to heal when you're always thinking, oh, it's my fault. I did that. No, abuse happens to people. And so having trust in, coming back, believing in yourself, taking it easy, take things slow, and believe that, not everyone out there's a bad guy. You can come back from this and not, again, reach out for help. A lot of this stuff is mental. And I think a lot, that mental stuff hangs around a lot longer, and your mind is always, questioning things. But don't be ashamed to reach out for help, because it's definitely nice to hear someone who believes in you and can walk you through the process of healing step by step. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can get better. It's a process. And so how long you got into the relationship and how long it took to kind of destroy you or make you, question your ability to trust people. But you let the healing also be a process, and believe that it can happen.
Yeah. Let's assume for a moment. I mean, obviously, you talked about the 1 in 3. I think you're right. I think that this is much more common than what we believe on college campuses today. And let's assume that you're talking to somebody that is experiencing abuse in a relationship. You've been talking about resources and things like that. Your website, of course, is datingtipsbymeg.com. Where can somebody go in, like, let's assume they're a college student. Where should they be going in order to get resources if they are stuck in an abusive relationship?
Uh, if you're on a college campus, there should be a Title IX, officer there. They usually
Hmm.
have a safety center or a counseling center.
Hmm.
It's kind of fortunate that colleges have a lot more resources sometimes than even local, adults have access to, because they're trying to support the campus, and they know it happens so often, it happens often, that they're there because it deters people's lives. So they want to have successful students, so they have things on campus to help you manage what's happening in your world. Local resources, there's victim crisis lines. Knowing that those, if you just think, oh, someone's going to call the police or someone's going to take action, it's all about just helping people. So sometimes you don't have to give your name. You don't have to give all those personal details. They just want to help you, and they understand what's happening to you. So reaching out to a crisis line, sometimes just talking about it makes you feel better. Not being out there alone, having this all pent up inside you and questioning things. Someone letting you know. I mean, when I first met with an advocate, I had no idea how bad the relationship was. And just having someone say, oh, this is going to increasingly get worse, that you should probably move on to the relationship. And it made me stop going, well, maybe I'm just being, too picky, kind of thing. And so having people that were trained to talk to. Love is Respect is a teenage line, crisis line. They have a way to text them, the 22522. You text Love Is. That's a way, depending on, they give out resources that teenagers can use and young people can use. And you're talking to another peer, not an adult, but someone who's gone through that and understands what you're going through. So don't be afraid to reach out, and don't think that someone's going to, try to take advantage of the situation, or someone's going to do things that you don't want them to do. You're the leader of that conversation, and they just want to help you in any way they can. Sometimes it's, again, just talking to someone will make you feel better. So, reach out. You Google hotlines, there's tons of national domestic violence hotline as well as out there. RAIN for sexual assault. There's lots of different hotlines, and they have amazing professionals, and sometimes they can even lead you to your local resources if you feel okay going to other resources beyond the college campus.
Thank you for sharing all of those hotlines and all of those resources. I think that's super important, is just give everybody, here's a whole menu of resources. Reach out to any of them, so
Right.
that way, whatever you feel comfortable with, so that way you can get the help that you need. I think that's really important. And you're right, there is the Title IX office on college campuses as well. So that's another resource if you're on a college campus that's completely designed to help you. But again, I always want to give the full menu and let this person, this survivor, figure out, here's the best option for me. I want to give them
Right.
those choices so that way they can freely choose.
And I would
Um,
say also, just a other quick note on that is that those crisis lines are 24/7,
yeah.
365 days a year. So no matter what you're thinking, because a lot of people say, "Oh, wait till the morning," then they kind of settle in it and like, "Oh, maybe it's overreacting," so they don't reach out. If you're thinking of reaching out, if you want to reach out, like they're there for you anytime. So, kind of go for it. The first thing that happens is you feel just a little bit better by someone else knowing, what's happening to you.
Yeah.
So
That's a great point. I mean, even if it's midnight, 1 o'clock, whatever, there's somebody there to talk to. And I think that's the
definitely.
most important thing. I think people just want somebody else to believe their story. I think that's like the most
Yes.
important thing because many times people will say, oh, that's not true or that didn't happen. They just want to be believed more than anything.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's really the big piece there. And there are people, plenty of these hotlines to talk to at any time, day or night. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Meg. Super important. Now, I do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And it just so happens that next week there's a really big conference happening in Denver, Colorado. Now, I know that you're actually a little bit closer to Utah on the left
Right.
side of the state than you are to Denver on the right side of the state. But where should I be going for great food in the Colorado area? You have any recommendations for me?
Well, I was thinking about that because I do go to Denver. There's a lot
Uh-huh.
of things that are held in Denver because that's a bigger city and
Right.
that's where everyone comes to mingle.
Yeah.
But there's always, Colorado's known for their Mexican food.
Okay.
Their tacos, the street tacos. Anywhere you walk, no matter what, I was trying to think of like where is he probably located in Denver? Anywhere you go, it is a foodie state. You're
Yeah.
gonna find amazing food, from the steakhouses in the higher end down to the cool local, hidden spots.
Yeah.
So depending on where you're at, just go online. Go online because all these places are amazing. I was trying to figure out one place to stay, and the only thing I was gonna recommend for sure is this Casa Bonita. It's kind of a local thing that's happened for a long time. It's not so much the food, although I've heard they've been really their food, level of their satisfaction with their food, but it's about the waterfalls and these divers coming off the cliffs and taking an old time picture. It's an experience. So,
Nice.
but they have the food to match it now. I would say the only thing you have to do is have reservations, but it's definitely one of those things people mark off their list or once they've gone to Denver, oh, we've got to go here. It's a kind of a cool place to be, but tons of food in Colorado, tons of great food. So depending on what location you're at, just get on Yelp, get on one of those things. They have some great recommendations, and whatever you're craving, there's a restaurant for you in Colorado. So
Fantastic. I love it. Well, I will definitely go and check them out next week. Super excited to eat a ton of good food. So that's going to be great. If our listeners, if they want to connect with you and bring you in to speak on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you?
there's a few places. I'm online. Everything all the social medias and stuff is Dating Tips by Meg. Uh, I have dating tips by Meg at gmail.com. You can email me. You can call me, my cell phone. I can give that out or we can
Yeah.
put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Uh, there's all sorts of, I have my website, datingtipsbymeg.com. And there's a place in there you can inquire and send an email that way as well to me. But any of those things, even DM me on social media. I'm happy to help and happy to connect. I'd love to come into your campus. I offer a lot of different types of presentations as well as they're very interactive. And usually, I've gotten a lot of good responses as far as people just, wow, I didn't know that, or oh, it's happening to me. This is really happening. It's like it's almost so common, like the things that happen to people. They like the abusers have a book that they go to and just go right down the line of things to do. But yeah, get in touch with me, reach out, say hi. I post, comment. I respond to all those different things, and again on LinkedIn as well. So
Perfect. So it's dating
lots of
tips.
places.
Lots of places. Dating tips by Meg.com. Also, dating tips by Meg on social media. So go and check that out. I'm actually going to put Meg's cell phone in the comments, in the notes for this show. So if you do want to reach out to her or you just need somebody to talk to about what you're
Yeah,
going through, by all means, just please text her, and she will definitely respond to you. So, Meg, what can I say? Thank you so much for being here on the show. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your story. We appreciate all of it. Thank you.
thank you.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Meg, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with somebody else on campus that needs to hear her words. Thank you so much for being here on the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. And thanks so much. Bye for now.